Have you ever had that experience? You drive past the same place 100 times, maybe on your way to work or even just a grocery run.
Yeah.
And then one day you just see it, a piece of architecture just leaps out, and you realize you're not just looking at a building, but at a story.
Exactly. It's when the background suddenly becomes the foreground.
Yeah.
That passive looking turns into active seeing.
That is the perfect way to put it, and it's the exact starting point for our source material today. It comes from a collection called Notes on Photography, Part 217.
Okay.
And the author, Ang, wasn't on some big architectural field trip. They were just running errands, and this one building a rooftop at the entrance to a park with shop blocks, it just finally grabbed them.
And what's so interesting is that what grabbed them wasn't one style, but this conversation between two completely different historical movements.
Right.
So I think our mission for this deep dive is to decode that conversation, to unpack how you get neoclassicism and modernism to, live together in one structure.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're talking about, a late 19th century grand design clashing with the raw engineering power of the Industrial Revolution.
Yes, from the mid-19th century. It's a building that is, as you said earlier, a kind of story, or maybe an argument with itself.
And what I love is that the author admits they'd seen it so many times they were always intrigued, but they only just now decided to really dig in and research it.
And that's the key, isn't it? That shift from just being curious to actually asking, okay, what am I looking at? That's when a building becomes a puzzle.
So as the author starts solving it, this complexity reveals itself. They identify it as this striking blend of, Neoclassicism and modernism.
That's the one.
Let's start with the older side of that equation, the part that's looking backward. The notes say the interior draws heavily on classical grand design.
Right, that's the neoclassical heart of it. It's all about revivalism. The inside wants to feel like it has the weight, the authority of, ancient Greece and Rome.
So we're thinking late 19th, maybe early 20th century for that kind of inspiration.
That's the likely time frame. You're looking for perfect symmetry, columns, pediments, all that grand, orderly ornamentation.
It's a very rational style. It came out of the Enlightenment, this idea of architecture embodying reason, stability. But by the late 19th century, wasn't this also a kind of reaction against all the chaos of industrialization?
That is such a critical point. Yeah. I mean, neoclassicism is often a search for principles in a world that feels like it's spinning out of control. It's comforting.
It's stable.
It's stable. It's gravitas. You see these ancient, reliable forms when the world outside is being totally remade by steam engines and steel mills.
So you've got this reverence for the past, the search for stability on the inside. But then you walk toward the entrance.
Then it's a completely different story.
It just screams industrial innovation. It's a total shift in materials and concept, everything.
That's the modernist element making his voice heard. The entrance has this massive glazed roof, creating a modern atrium.
It's not whispering about ancient Rome anymore.
No, it's shouting about the age of steel. This is all about using materials that you just couldn't have used on this scale before, or at least not affordably.
And that's the mid-19th century roaring into the picture, that kind of massive glass structure. That's a direct result of the Industrial Revolution, right?
Absolutely. It's all about the shift in production. Around the 1850s, you start seeing mass-produced rolled iron, then cheaper steel, and these huge, affordable panes of plate glass.
Before that, you're stuck with small windows and heavy stone walls.
Exactly. So this glass atrium is only possible because of industrial manufacturing.
So if the neoclassical interior is channeling a Greek temple, the glazed entrance is channeling something like the Crystal Palace.
That is the perfect analogy, yes. One is about historical authority, the other is a celebration of pure engineering capability.
And what's so fascinating is how they married the two. They used the absolute latest technology to house the oldest aesthetic ideals.
It's a structure that is fundamentally modern, but it's dressed up in classical clothes.
What a collision. Okay, so after identifying this blend, the author, Ang, shifts gears. They move from description to critique.
Right.
They do say the overall European, architectural design seems to bring a fresh new perspective to the surrounding area, but there's a problem.
And the problem isn't the design itself, but where it is. It's a question of displacement. The author starts asking if this grand Western idea actually fits.
And what's the missing piece, according to the notes?
It's a really fundamental point, a complete lack of integration of local design elements. The author specifically says it needed to incorporate tropical decorative motifs or patterns.
Hmm.
This is where the big idea fails to connect with its actual physical home.
I wonder, is that just about decoration, or is there a functional critique hiding in there? I mean, a massive glass roof in the tropics sounds hot.
You are right on the money. The author describes the Western ornamentation as rather lacking or cold, but that coldness isn't just aesthetic, it's functional. Well, neoclassicism and these big glazed structures were developed for temperate climates, where you want to let in light and keep heat.
Hmm.
In a tropical setting, you need the opposite. You need shade, you need airflow.
And local design elements would naturally provide that.
They're evolved to do that. So the author's call for local motifs is really a subtle call for climate-responsive design.
That reframes the whole thing. They're not just saying add some local flair. They're saying the building should work better where it is.
Precisely. They wanted the local elements to replace and complement the Western ornamentation. It's a call for a true hybrid, not just an import.
Without that, the final judgment is pretty harsh, rather lacking or cold.
And that feeling of coldness is really about alienation, isn't it?
Mm.
It's what happens when a building doesn't seem to acknowledge the ground it's standing on.
But couldn't you make the argument that, by importing these big European ideas, the building is making a statement about being modern, being global, and that adding local touches might just dilute that?
That's a fair point to raise for sure. But I think what the notes are challenging is the idea that global has to mean generic.
Okay.
A truly great building should speak to both its global context, the technology, the history, and its immediate environment. When you just drop one on top of the other, you get something that feels borrowed,
Not built.
not built for that place, for those people who use that park entrance every single day.
So it's really about the difficulty of finding an authentic architectural voice in
Yeah.
this globalized world. It's not enough to just look grand or historic.
You have to feel like you belong.
Yeah.
And this building shows that even when you have this really sophisticated, fascinating blend of two major historical styles, you can still miss the mark if you ignore the local context.
The conversation between the 19th century styles is there, but the conversation with the neighborhood is missing.
Exactly.
Wow. So we've gone from a simple grocery run to identifying this deep structural dialogue between classicism and industrial tech, and then topped it off with this really sharp critique about local design.
And that journey from an overlooked rooftop to a cultural text you can read, that's what's so valuable here. It really does take a researcher's eye to pull apart the history. But the final point is about feeling,
Yeah, about warmth.
about warmth, and about how local elements aren't just decoration. They can radically change how a building functions and how it's perceived.
It really makes you want to look at your own surroundings differently. Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener. Given this tension we've talked about between grand classical forms, industrial glass, and the need for local motifs, what architectural choices are we all overlooking in the everyday places you see?
Is there a critique hiding in plain sight in your local park entrance or a nearby shop lot, just waiting for your next errand to be revealed?